The calm before the storm. The summer sun bathed the world in a golden glow, a stark contrast to the sterile confines of the hospital and my actual day job. As an emergency medicine resident, I'd traded the leisurely pursuit of knowledge for the relentless demands of saving lives. The paltry sum of $1.38 per hour, now a relic of a bygone era, was my current reality, working endless hours in the quest for knowledge and skills. Yet the camaraderie and the thrill of the unknown kept me going. The insistent buzz of my pager shattered my tranquil reverie. I rose, a sense of anxiety settling deep in my gut. The familiar tone signaled a new emergency, a new challenge. As I stepped into the flight crew area, the weight of responsibility pressed down on me. The goal was simple: be airborne within 10 minutes. The desk, a small nondescript console, was my command center. From here I would field calls from hospitals and EMS providers, each one a potential life or death situation. A bulletin board above the desk, adorned with a grim tally of recent aeromedical crashes, served as a stark reminder of the risks involved. A fatal oversight. I scribbled a hasty note on my pad, a whirlwind of thoughts racing through my mind. The Sikorsky S-76 loomed before me, a sleek, deadly machine. I tugged at my stethoscope, a reassuring weight around my neck. The summer breeze caressed my face, a fleeting moment of tranquility before the storm. A cold dread washed over me as I realized my fatal oversight. The cooler to carry units of blood, a lifeline for countless patients, had been left behind. My heart pounded in my chest, a drumbeat of impending doom. The medical director's wrath was a specter that haunted many flight crew dreams. Malachi, a grinning imp, sauntered over, the cooler clutched in his hands. His pale, vacant eyes and corn silk hair earned him a chilling nickname. He was a dead ringer for a character from an old horror thriller. As I strapped into my seat, the full weight of the mission settled upon me. The rotors throbbed, a menacing heartbeat that echoed in my ears. My partner, a seasoned nurse paramedic, inquired about the call. I unfolded the crumpled note, the details a blur of fear and anticipation, a high-speed collision, multiple casualties, and the grim specter of death. The medic's enthusiasm was jarring. "Awesome, Doc! What a great first flight for you!" he shouted into his headset. I was a mix of excitement and terror, a cocktail of emotions that churned within me. This first flight was more than a challenge. It was a baptism by fire. A descent into chaos, our mobile ICU was the Sikorsky S-76, a cramped metallic coffin. The flight physician, wedged behind the pilot, faced backward, a fish out of water. The paramedics, their eyes fixed on the horizon, navigated the chaos. The primary patient, strapped to a stretcher on the left side, was a mere silhouette in the dim light. A second patient, if necessary, would be wedged in the cabin, a sardine in a tin. The rotor blades thrummed, a heartbeat that grew louder as we neared the accident scene. A strange whisper echoed through my headset, a distorted message that sent chills down my spine. "I see dead people," the voice repeated, a haunting refrain. Malachi, ever the jester, smirked. I cranked up the volume, the chilling words echoing in my ears. Our Kiwi pilot, a man of few words, glanced at me with a knowing glint in his eye. "Any time to watch movies, Doc?" he asked, his thick New Zealand accent a soothing balm in the storm. The rotor slowed, a sigh of relief. My first task as a flight physician was to contact flight control and confirm our safe landing. A seemingly trivial task, but one that could send the flight center into a panic. The door hissed open, a blast of hot air hitting us like a physical blow. The scene below was a macabre spectacle, a twisted ballet of mangled metal and shattered lives. The smell of burning rubber and gasoline hung heavy in the air. The chaos unfolded before us, a grotesque symphony of suffering and despair. A quick survey revealed the extent of the carnage. 5 patients lay critically injured, their bodies a testament to the raw power of the collision. One victim was already beyond help, trapped in the wreckage. Another, ejected from the vehicle, lay lifeless on the periphery. A third, missing from the scene, was presumed lost. The crowd was a frenzy of emotion, a cacophony of screams and pleas for help. Intoxicated by the sun and alcohol, they offered unsolicited advice, their words a meaningless babble. As I approached my patient, the gravity of his injuries was immediately apparent. The first responders had done their best to restrain him, but his thrashing body threatened to undo their efforts. His face, a mask of blood and dirt, bore the hallmarks of severe head trauma. The golden hour, the critical window for survival, was slipping away. The urgency was palpable. I needed to establish an IV, but there was no one to assist me. The EMS personnel were overwhelmed. their attention divided between the injured and the frenzied crowd. My attempts to start the IV were futile, the patient's flailing arms a constant obstacle, a race against time. The patient was at risk of aspirating, a deadly scenario that demanded immediate intervention. Intubation, a procedure I had mastered during residency, was the only solution. The clock was ticking, each passing second a potential death sentence. I selected the endotracheal tube, a slender weapon against the forces of death. The laryngoscope, my trusty tool, was ready. Without IV access, I opted for a less ideal route, injecting sedatives and paralytics into his thigh. Within minutes, he was unconscious, his body limp and lifeless. The airway was my battlefield, a narrow passage that held the key to his survival. I lay on my belly in the dirt, my vision partially obscured by the dust. With a surge of adrenaline, I spotted the vocal cords, the gateway to his lungs. Just as I reached for the tube, chaos erupted. In a frenzy of activity, a well-meaning first responder kicked my equipment into the grass, showering us both with dirt. My vision was compromised, a frustrating obstacle in this high-stakes game. I muttered a few choice expletives, my anger a fleeting emotion. The patient's life hung in the balance. I retrieved my equipment and began ventilating him with a bag valve mask. The suction device, clogged with dirt, was useless. Time to act. With a surge of adrenaline, I passed the endotracheal tube, securing his airway. But the battle was far from over. A telltale sign of a collapsed lung, a crackling sensation under the skin, demanded immediate action. Attention pneumothorax, a deadly condition, loomed. The clock was ticking, and every second was precious. As I pulled out a large needle, I could feel all eyes on me, including a young paramedic I'd seen dozens of times in the emergency department. I relished the opportunity to teach, a passion that had only grown stronger since I became chief resident. The weekly skills lab was my domain, a crucible where knowledge was forged and skills honed. It was time to pay it forward. After a splash of betadine on the patient's chest, I guided the paramedic through his first needle decompression, a simple yet critical procedure. The needle, a sharp instrument of salvation, pierced the chest, releasing the trapped air. A failure to act swiftly could have dire consequences, compressing the lungs and hindering blood flow. The increasing altitude during flight would only exacerbate the danger. The patient also required a chest tube, a procedure I would have performed had we been in cleaner condition. But with time of the essence, we needed to go. EMS swiftly packaged the patient, their skill and efficiency, a testament to their years of experience, and helped load the patient onto our bird. Malachi, ever the enigma, ran into the surrounding trees with a police officer. A pregnant woman ejected from the vehicle lay critically injured. Her abdomen, a swollen mass of bruises, hinted at the extent of her internal injuries. Despite the graveness of her condition, Malachi's demeanor remained unflappable. The helicopter, a cramped metallic coffin, was a far cry from the comfort of the hospital. We took turns ventilating our patients, our breaths a rhythm of life in the face of death. The flight was a blur, a whirlwind of activity culminating in a jarring landing on the hospital roof. My patient, despite his critical injuries, survived. But the tragedy did not end there. Several others, family members and friends, were hospitalized. The toll of the accident was devastating, a stark reminder of the consequences of reckless driving and alcohol. As we debriefed, the pilot's offhand whisper caught me again. "I see dead people," he had said, a chilling phrase that echoed in my mind. I learned the phrase's origin was a recently released movie, The Sixth Sense. But the reality behind his words was far more grim. Several victims had perished instantly, their bodies twisted and mangled beyond recognition. From his elevated vantage point, the pilot had witnessed their final moments, a necessary callousness. When I recount this tale, the reactions are often visceral, gasps and murmurs of disbelief, a testament to the public's perception of our profession. Yet in the crucible of emergency medicine, a certain callousness is essential. It's a shield against the emotional onslaught, a survival mechanism that allows us to function in the face of unimaginable horror. The pilot's twisted humor was a coping mechanism to deflect the growing tension in the cockpit. Pilots, with their keen situational awareness, could sense the storm brewing. His humor was a lifeline, a way to distract me from the impending chaos. Despite the overwhelming circumstances, we did our best. With their unwavering dedication, the first responders were instrumental in stabilizing the scene. Their selfless efforts, often performed on a volunteer basis, were invaluable. Though I earned the Black Cloud Doc moniker, I knew my medic partner had found his reward. His patient had survived, a testament to his skill and the team's dedication. Yet a nagging question remained. What of the unborn child? Uncertainty was a constant companion in our world. Despite the challenges, the thrill of my first flight and the adrenaline rush of emergency medicine captured my soul. I had found my calling, a perilous journey that would test me to my limits.